Lopez here. Today we're going to make another mealy sauce, the bechamel. For the bechamel, we're going to need a couple of ingredients. We're going to need flour, butter, and milk. Traditionally, the bechamel is flavored with onion, bay leaf, clove, and nutmeg. But for this recipe, we won't be using the flavoring ingredients, the onion, the bay leaf, the clove, and the nutmeg. We will, however, make a derivative sauce from the bechamel to make mac and cheese. For that mac and cheese, I have some cheddar cheese, Parmesan cheese, Monterey Jack cheese, and mozzarella, as well as some golden corn, sweet, that is. And lastly, you can't forget Princess pasta. Let's begin. Okay. So like I did mention, we're making some macaroni and cheese from our bechamel sauce. First, before we start, I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my pot of water, putting a lid on it so that it can boil a little bit faster. We have a medium-sized pot here for our bechamel sauce. I'm going to be using a spoon as well as a whisk for this recipe. And again, the ingredients are butter and flour. For the butter and flour, they have to be the same weight or the same measurement. So here I'm going to be using 3 ounces of butter and 3 ounces of flour, as well as 3 cups of milk. Now, I know this says a quart, which is 4 cups, but I'm going to be using 3 cups, and then that additional cup, we'll be using it more or less if the sauce needs to be thinned down a little bit. And again, lastly, we have the onion, the bay leaf, the clove, and the nutmeg. Traditionally, a bechamel is flavored with these ingredients, but today we're not going to do that. We're simply going to go ahead and do a simple bechamel with the addition of cheese. So let's get started. In this pot, I'm going to turn it on medium to high heat, get our butter melted. Now, as that butter starts to melt, we want to make sure that we have everything ready to go. And what we are doing here is we're going to actually make a thickening agent called a roux. Now, a roux, again, equal parts butter and flour, allows for sauces to be thickened. The thing that we have to be aware of here, though, however, is that when making a roux, we want to make sure that we cook out the flour so that our sauce does not get a floury taste in it. So once this butter is melted, I'm going to incorporate our flour. And we're simply looking to get a white roux. White roux. Now there's 3 different types of roux: white roux, blonde or pale roux, and a dark roux. Now, the darker your roux, the less power it's going to have to thicken a sauce. The lighter your roux, the more power it'll have to thicken a sauce. So in this case, our roux, the white roux, will be a roux that will thicken our bechamel. At a good consistency. So once that butter is almost melted, I'm simply going to start adding my flour. Adding a little bit at a time, mixing it in. And the reason why I'm using a spoon as opposed to a whisk is because with the spoon, I can go ahead and get all around that pot. The corner, well, not the corners, but all angles of the pot, right? Whereas with the whisk, you're not able to do that. Add a little bit more flour. Now we're just incorporating all the flour, making sure that we get everything combined. I want to lower my heat just a little bit and start to cook that roux. And again, we're looking for that flour to cook so that when we are actually tasting our bechamel, we are not tasting any flour whatsoever. So we want to cook this roux for approximately 3 to 5 minutes. And again, we're not looking for it to get drastically dark. If we continue to cook this roux, it will continue to darken by the minute, right? And so then we're looking here to look for a white roux. I'm gonna lower my heat just a little bit, right? And from here on out, I'm going to be using a whisk. At this point, I'm going to start incorporating my milk. And one thing I want to make sure of is that as I incorporate, I'm whisking in my milk. And you see the thickening power of that roux. Continue to add your milk. And whisk away. Now, I did mention I was going to add 3 cups, so I have 1 more cup to go. Make sure we get the sides of the pot so that we are incorporating all the roux into this milk. Now, at this point, what I would do is add my onion, half an onion, my bay leaf, my clove, and grate some nutmeg to season the bechamel. Once we've combined the milk and the roux, we simply want to let this cook for an additional 20 minutes. As you allow it to cook, you'll see that the milk will start to thicken more and more. So during those 20 minutes, our sauce was cooking. I actually cooked our pasta. Our pasta is ready to go. Now I'm simply just going to finish off our sauce. Our sauce, as you can see here, has gotten a little thick, and that's all because of the roux, the white roux. So it's a little bit thick for my preference. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to continue adding a little bit of that milk that I reserved. And again, remember, we reserved 1 cup of milk. So just continue to add some milk, and you'll see that the sauce will start to thin down. Now I'm actually going to use that entire cup because once I add my cheese to the sauce, it's actually going to get thick once again. So I'm actually going to use the entire cup of milk. And then at this point, I'm going to go ahead and add roughly around 2 cups of cheese. Now, the more cheese you add, the cheesier it gets, so it's all to your preference. But I'm going to go ahead and do 2 cups of cheese to the bechamel. Now, I'm going to season the bechamel after I add the cheese, simply because cheese can be a little bit salty. So I want to make sure that the sauce is not too salty once I've added this cheese. Take a second to taste the sauce. And the sauce will need some salt. I'll start off with a pinch. At the same time, I'm also going to add a pinch of white pepper. The reason why I'm adding white pepper as opposed to black pepper is so that you don't see the black specks of black pepper in that sauce. Mix that in. And then again, give it a little taste. I'm going to add one more pinch of salt, and then the bechamel should be good to go. So now that our cheese sauce is ready, we're going to actually combine all of our ingredients. I have my corn already drained and in this bowl. My pasta has already been cooked. I cooked it to al dente, and that simply translates to the bite. It's going to continue as I put it into the oven. Have my pasta, put it in my bowl here. And I am going to combine that corn and the princess pasta together, right? Now, once everything is fully incorporated, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add my cheese sauce, formerly our bechamel sauce, into the pasta, right? I'm going to go ahead and add 3/4 of it. All we do now is mix everything to combine. Now, it's very important that even though we tasted our sauce, we still taste the product before it comes to an end, right? So, I'm going to add just one more pinch of salt. Now, I did add salt to my pasta water, but just want to give it another dash of seasoning so that all the flavors are blended together well. Once I've fully incorporated my sauce, my corn, and my pasta, I'm simply going to place this pasta on a casserole. Using my spatula, I'm going to get all the corn that is left inside the bowl. And to top it off, I did reserve a little bit of extra cheese. So I'm just going to top off the pasta with the cheese on top. To make it a little bit cheesier. And lastly, what I'm going to do is add some Japanese style panko. Now this panko is breadcrumbs that have been processed just a little bit, just a little less finer than your typical breadcrumb that you find at the grocery store. So we're just going to top off our mac and cheese with this breadcrumb. And this is about 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. And all that is left is to place this mac and cheese into the oven at 350 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes until the breadcrumbs have browned a little bit. Now, if you want the breadcrumb to get a little bit darker, you would put on the broiler on the oven, just to give it that nice caramelization. But that is essentially it with our bechamel sauce. Thank you.